is to talk a little bit about Nua Venture dynamics, and it really dovetails with what you've heard already from well, BDO and Deloitte in terms of their support mechanism, but it's actually looking at a slightly different part of the spectrum. It's looking at where the venture capital groups are literally looking at the investment. So in a way, I'm trying to talk a little bit towards the entrepreneur and definitely towards the groups who help entrepreneurs, both of you in general. So obviously, here we are in Ireland. I want to talk, and as I mentioned, just about the blind enthusiasm that entrepreneurs have as entrepreneurs versus the kind of pragmatic reality that's involved in supporting them going forward. So here we are, obviously, in Ireland. We know our global reach. We're very much here at the research end of the spectrum. We know we have prioritizations in Ireland for research, so there's a very strong focus here in research. This conference just continues the testament to that. And so out of that research base, we very often get very good ideas. We get people, entrepreneurs coming forward. They want to get their projects funded, and what I want to do is to kind of talk a little bit about that dynamic. So the normal pipeline that we see, that is when we have our idea, early stage idea, we move it forward, it gets funneled down, till eventually we obviously get it launched and get it out there into the marketplace. The part we're talking about is much earlier in this funnel, probably way before we actually get our product launched, and how do we actually support it financially, how do we support it in terms of sort of people, capabilities, and so on. So what I want to talk about is this particular risk and time. It depends on whether we're in the ICT business or the life science business, the energy businesses. There's various sort of parameters of risk and length it takes to actually bring to gestation any particular project. Okay? So, venture capital, and there are many venture capitalists here, and I want to talk about the venture capitalists, a particular group, because they kind of come after very much where Enterprise Ireland is by far Ireland's largest venture capitalist. They've invested in all the winners and all the losers and everybody else, so they really are the backbone of support for Irish ventures. But beyond that, where you get to the more institutional venture capitalists, they really are putting in a lot of money and a lot of petrol in the tank to really advance it forward. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the mindset that they actually have in dealing with us, the entrepreneur, or from a venture perspective. Now, they're literally going to take a stake in your business, so that means they're literally going to be an owner. It's not a loan. They don't want the money back per se. They want the future money back. It's not that particular euro they want back, they want the future money back. So they're co-owners. They will risk it all, they will lose it all with you, but they'll try to put controls around that. So at a practical level, that's a particular group. And they are focused clearly on exit. That is, they would like to somehow come to a fruition in 3 to 7 years where they're in a stage where in fact money will be coming back, but it's not as a loan, it's coming back because either your company has advanced to a new level. So with that in mind, I want to kind of discuss the reality. I've been in venture capital for maybe about 15 years, and I have to admit that, and the one thing about venture capitalists is they see hundreds of businesses being presented to them. So in my very first year, which is a long time ago, in 1997, I spent the first year watching wonderful companies come forward. It could be a software company, a med tech company, it could be a material science company. They're all sort of technology-based companies, and it took me a long time when you sit through these presentations to figure out how are we going to make a judgment on which one is worth investing in. And you just watch them over and over again. You say, what are the factors that are driving this investment? So the question I had in my mind is, what are the poles of value that are going to help us make the decision involving investing in these companies? And the poles of value turn out to be, for high-tech technology and research-based ventures, two things. How technically intense is this investment? We'll talk about that in a second. And the other key pole is, how will we capture a large market? How is this company going to capture a large market? So these are the two key poles of value. Now the question is, how do you measure them? How would you walk up to any investment and say, how technically intense is this investment? Well, the obvious things are, we could look at the intellectual property, which is there to try to protect it. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it could be there. We can look at peer-to-peer review. We can say how are these people rated? We can look at the complexity of the R&D. Right? We can look at whether they're building a platform technology. We can look at, are these people involved in the standards bodies for the industry? Because sometimes they are. The Iona technology team were involved in the standards for the Corba software standards. So are they involved in standards? These are important things. So that's how we might say, when we're looking at an investment, is this a technologically intense investment? And believe it, the more technologically intense it is, the harder it is to copy. So there's a kind of protection. That's why you're looking for it. It's too easy to copy if a problem. On the other hand, there's no use being technologically intense if we can never leverage some new market, some new opportunity by getting this under control. So that market capture capability is the second critical pole of value. Can we, if we work with this team on this technological new idea, advance into a market and start to capture a market? And by the way, can we capture that in the next three years? Not can we capture it in 20 years' time, because that's pure R&D. Can we capture it in 3 to 5 to 7 years' time? Ideally, can we capture the next 2 years? So the market thing is the size of the problem being addressed. Now, can we define it? Can we test it in this market? Because very often we're dealing with people who are talking about a market, they haven't actually entered the market. So they're talking about it, we're trying to evaluate it. How is it going to be adopted? How will we get it there? What will their pricing be? These are the normal sort of market things. But the critical thing is, have they something in this technologically intense thing that's being presented to us that can capture a major market? So these are the critical poles of value that you're looking at. So suddenly, yes, it is possible to consider somebody with a piece of software for the insurance industry compared with somebody who's doing dense wave division multiplexing light components to kind of transmit data over undersea cables to somebody who's actually doing a medtech product sort of for invasive surgery. You can actually consider them all collectively by taking a look at how technologically difficult they're to do and what's the market that's going to be captured. Now, it starts to get more impressive, of course, when the person is able to say, guess what, we have a prototype. We've actually worked on this idea. We're not just talking about it, we've worked on it. And in fact, our prototype's a working one. It's got core functionality or whatever. And in fact, it's stable and so on. The second thing that's very impressive is, are we working with some lead users, some people who might actually think this is a good idea? In other words, we've broken down the barrier that they actually have 1 or 2 users. When I talked about the large market that we capture, that's one thing. The truth is, it's more impressive in a way to have your lead users, because they're real. They're people we can actually talk to. They're people we can check out this idea with. Okay? So these are what I'd call the value magnetics for the venture. So as an entrepreneur, I've been sitting on the other side with kind of the hundreds of the plans. We're trying to evaluate this. We may not be saying something. This may not be Dragon's Den. This may not be where you're giving out and sort of criticizing people. But these are the thoughts in our mind. And then who are these people? Who's the CEO? Who's the CTO? Who's the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Marketing Person? Who's on that team? Who's holding this whole thing up? And we're looking at that. Even if we're silently not saying anything, we're looking at that. And then finally, well, obviously who's on the board. Sometimes you can connect with they're very well connected at a board level as well. But finally, we get down to the next question, which is, do they have money today? Who's invested in them today? How much cash are they going to take? And a lot of my prior colleagues talked about cash available in terms of funding and co-funding from government bodies, which is very important. But this is the sort of model. We'll come to that in a second. And then the final thing is, what's this deep curve here, this valley of death? How much money are they really going to need? And then eventually, 3 to 5 to 7 years, who will actually buy this company? Who's going to take it out? Because a venture capitalist, by definition, needs an exit. They're thinking about who's going to buy it. But it's a long time. It could be 3, 7 years, right? And then finally, what's the valuation? And how much of the company are we going to take with them? By the way, most entrepreneurs walk in the door thinking that's the first question. That is absolutely the last question. This is like a marriage. We're trying to figure out, are we getting married to these people for at least 7 years? So whether it's 15% or 20% or 25%, that's less of the issue. Now, The J curve, this is what we have. You've seen it on other charts. There's basically it's that depth of money. The smaller one is obviously the entrepreneur's view of the world. The deeper one is obviously more the venture capitalist view of the world, sort of twice as deep and twice as long. But and here's an interesting cartoon I found in one of our publications from an artist called Dan Maher. That's a little bit how we think of the J curve as well. All that money just sort of dropping into it, and are we ever going to climb out the other side? So, venture is unique financing, and sometimes it's seen as more as an art than a science. One of my colleagues in the industry called Dermot Beckery from Delta Capital has written an excellent book about serious raising venture capital for serious entrepreneurs. I can recommend that strongly to you. But the issue really then for us is how do we evaluate that and put it all together and evaluate the depth of the technology and the market. So that's kind of a quick overview of it. And then in my own world of Nua Venture, where we advise companies and we work with the people who work with the people, we're really auditing that, trying to help them prepare for that type of investment. And we use various models that we've developed in terms of working out the completeness of the product. So that's it. I hope I'm on time. I know I sort of timeline over there. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.